The Queen's Assassin. Come with us as we reveal the assassination of Queen Selina of Varentia. Is she dead? Who is behind it? Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel as we bring you historical true crimes. How a queen's assassination sparked the World War. The bullet did not sound like thunder, as poets later claimed. It was a small, cracked pop, the kind a boy might make with his cheek and tongue. But in the instant it struck Queen Selina of Varentia on the steps of the sapphire-domed Winter Palace, the world lurched on its axis. The queen stumbled and caught herself on the iron railing, looked down at the red blooming through her white gloves as if it were a spilled cordial, and then folded into the arms of her captain of the guard. Her crown tilted and did not fall. By the time the assassin was wrestled flat and the breaths of the crowd turned from white fog to panicked screams, Celine's private secretary had already sent the amber-coated cable to the ministry, and the ministry had already sent the coal-coated cable to the alliances, and the alliances, like coals, nursed the first spark. Across the river, in a tobacco-stained cafe, a student named Mara watched the uniformed men sprint toward the palace and felt the tremor pass through the city like a body remembering how to shiver. She had not fired the shot. She had helped write the pamphlets that said someone should. She had thought words were flint, meant to strike, not to burn. She clutched the last copy of Against the Yoke and wondered if ink could be washed off hands. News moved by wire and rumor in equal measure. By midnight, the great clocks of the capital tolled 12 and kept tolling, as if time itself had lost its place. In Delforia, Varentia's older ally, the prime minister woke to the telephone and said, "No," 3 times before he said, "Mobilize." In Hadria, the enemy with velvet gloves, the empress poured tea and instructed her foreign minister to send condolences and troop trains in the same breath. The sympathy telegram arrived before dawn. The first train left at noon. General Torvin, who had guarded Celine since her coronation, stood in the cavern of the palace chapel and looked at her still face and thought, "She looks like the girl who chased dogs along the riverbank." He did not weep. Instead, he wrote the speech the new regent would give to the press. A sovereign killed is an assault on all law. He said the word law, as if it were a plank you could walk. The assassin was a clerk named Cade. He had the harmless face of a man always looking for his spectacles. When asked why, he said, "Because she smiled," which explained nothing and everything. The magistrates did not try him that day. The magistrates did not sleep that night. Mara returned to her attic room and found 2 men waiting, their hats on their knees, their boots clean. "For the cause," they said, handing her a parcel wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a pistol and a rail ticket to the north. She thought of saying no. She thought of how the crowd at the palace had flattened itself into one terrified breath. She tucked the ticket into her boot and the pistol into her satchel and kept her mouth closed until it tasted of tin. At the station, mobilization wore its most innocent face. Boys with flowers in their caps. Mothers who tried not to hand over their children and then did. A brass band playing a march that sounded like a lullaby with a spine. Posters uncurled from walls like tongues, promising honor and bread. The platform smelled of coal, oranges, and fear. Delforia published an ultimatum to Hadria. "Withdraw your troops from our borders." Hadria smiled again on paper and called Delforia's loss tragic and regrettable, which in the Dictionary of Empires meant, "Try us." The Southern Confederation, obliged to Delforia by a treaty signed under silk canopies and bad wine, raised its flag. The Maritime Union, obliged to Hadria by cheaper coal and warmer harbors, raised another. Flags multiplied like an illness. "What would you have me do?" the new regent asked General Torvin. "You once promised her you would keep her country." "Then keep it," said the general. "And keep your voice low when you can. The world is an echo." He remembered Celine's last candid advice. Never believe the first telegram. He tried, but the wires sang like a choir conducting itself. Every message absolute, every rumor canonical by the time it touched a minister's desk. A border skirmish became an invasion before afternoon. A supply convoy became a blockade before dusk. By night, the map was a bloodstream of arrows. In the north, Mara watched wheat bow under wind and thought how easily a field resembles an army. She boarded the second train and met a nurse with ink on her cuffs, a deserter with hands like books, and a boy who wrote a letter to his dog. Somewhere between stations they passed a river known for its trout, and the water ran bright as foil. "It's beautiful," the nurse said. Mara said, "It won't forgive us." At the palace, General Torvin took down the war banners Celine had kept hidden in a cedar chest. She had commissioned them not for battle, but for theater, to be shown to ambassadors who needed reminding. The silk was heavy with stitched constellations. He fastened them along the hall of maps and wrote another speech. He would say, "We go to war to end assassinations." He rehearsed it and heard its hollowness echo back. A bullet had become a drum. On the third day, the first shells fell on a border town whose name the capital had only recently learned to pronounce. The newspapers, eager to teach, printed it in phonetic syllables beside a photograph of a cracked well. A child drank from it anyway. The caption called him brave. The caption called him future. Mara arrived in the northern city of Arden to find the square fitted with scaffolding, as if preparing for a festival. Men unrolled canvas maps over cobbles and pointed with silver-tipped rods, as ladies might point at cakes. The parcel in her satchel throbbed like a tooth. She had been given a name to find in a cellar near the tannery, 3 streets down from a church with an eyeless saint. She found only the saint, rain cutting clean track marks through the soot on its face. "Are you lost?" asked a constable too gently. She nodded, not lying. He walked her to the edge of the square, where a man in a long coat waited like a punctuation mark. The man took her elbow. "You'll want to be careful," he said. "Everyone is recruiting." "For what?" she asked. "For being right," he said. At dusk, the first funeral procession wound through the capital, the horses' hooves wrapped in cloth. General Torvin walked behind the casket and listened to the city's silence. Angry, held breath silence. It would not last. Nothing in war lasts except lists. He folded Celine's last letter into his sleeve, the one she had written 3 days before she died, asking him to cancel a parade because it frightened the pigeons. That night, flames lifted from the naval yards of Delphoria, pillars of orange that turned the bay into a mirror of the sky. Hadria claimed accident. Delphoria claimed outrage. The Southern Confederation claimed duty. The Maritime Union claimed opportunity. Claim piled upon claim until the mountain of it looked like destiny. In Arden, the man in the long coat returned Mara's parcel, heavier now with an address. "A captain will pass through at midnight," he said. "If certain plans change hands, certain trains will not run." "And if I don't?" she asked. "Trains will run," he said. "They always run." She carried the pistol as if it might prick her, the papers as if they were glass, and the thought that perhaps the cause had been nothing but a door someone wanted opened. When the clock at St. Killian struck 12, she stepped into the alley behind the cafe, lifted her parcel, and, over the whisper of rain and shoe leather, heard tune. A boy, somewhere, was whistling the march that sounded like a lullaby. She had to choose which sound to live by. Mara did not hand over the papers. Instead, she walked to the river and slid them under a loose stone where the water lapped and licked. She felt, for a moment, that she had canceled a parade. By dawn, it did not matter. Another courier had delivered a duplicate set. Another boy had lifted his hand at the wrong moment in the wrong street, and the wrong soldiers had fired. A bridge exploded, a column rolled, a fleet launched. The wire sang itself hoarse. The Queen's portrait passed from mourning crepe to recruitment poster to the inside of a locket a soldier kissed before sleep. Years later, children would ask their grandfathers how a single bullet could start a world war. Their grandfathers would say, "It didn't. The bullet only found a lock everyone had spent years pretending wasn't a door. It turned, it clicked, and then all the other hands, dutiful, vengeful, greedy, terrified, pushed. On a hill above the city, where the wind still smelled like wheat in certain seasons, Mara planted a rowan tree. She watered it from a tin cup and told it the truth she could never print, that a queen had died because the world had been waiting to shout, and it used her name as the opening word. The tree took root anyway. In spring it bore red berries like wax seals, and crows came and took them, one by one, and carried them toward the river, as if messages might still change their minds mid-flight.